Today, we're going to be taking a look at DSLR camera kits and why I think camera kits just in general are a complete waste of money. Now, I understand that Amazon and most camera manufacturers almost all the time offer only basic cameras or basic DSLRs as a kit. However, places like Adorama and B&H offer both just the body or body and lenses without all the other junk that you get. Now, some kits are okay and worthwhile. You get some good benefits from them, but just in general, most kits have a lot of junk that really isn't beneficial or worthwhile for you to purchase, right? You're paying a little bit more money. It seems like you're getting a lot of stuff. You don't really know anything about photography, and that's why they're giving you most of this junk, because they know that you don't know what you're buying or what you're getting. I'm going to go through this kit. Now, I have a Nikon and a Canon. I just randomly picked this one. There is no reason. This is going to go whether it's Nikon, Canon, Pentax, Olympus. It doesn't make a difference. You really have to watch when purchasing a kit of what you're getting and make sure it's something beneficial to you. Now, the first thing that we have up here is just this Canon EOS Rebel T7, and this is just a great beginning body to get. So this is definitely something worthwhile. The next thing that we have here is this lens, which is the 18 to 55 variable aperture lens. And this is kind of like the bottom of the line, most basic lens that you can get in photography. Years ago, they used to start you off with a fixed prime 50mm lens. And truthfully, I would prefer that most students start with that 50mm lens. For one, it's a better lens and it has a faster aperture. Really, the difference between 50mm and 35mm is like a step and a half backwards. So you're not really getting too much out of this. The other problem is people, when they're learning photography, and remember, I teach beginning photography, is that they tend to always stick the camera at 18mm because it's easier for them to see what's going on in the camera. And so even though that they have a zoom lens, they almost never zoom because it's easier for them to see what's going on at 18mm. And truthfully, 18mm to learn on is not really the best focal length. This is an okay lens. It's definitely worth the money that you get. However, there are other options. What you'll find out with lenses is really they're the key element in photography. And so when you see a photographer walking around with a $2,000 lens, there's a reason that they have that $2,000 lens. It's definitely worth the money and investment. Unlike camera bodies, who kind of aren't very useful after about 5 years, lenses can last an extremely long amount of time. This lens, though not the greatest lens, is definitely something okay to start off with for a beginning photographer. Next thing we down here has a camera bag, and this is an off-brand camera bag. This is not a Canon camera bag. Some manufacturers might give you the Canon or Nikon camera bag. Truthfully, it doesn't make that much of a difference. I don't think walking around with a camera bag is a great option. First of all, they're bad for your neck and shoulders to carry around all the time. I usually just have either a waist belt or just my cameras. But any camera bag is going to be great just to store items in. Though one thing I can say, if you have just one lens, and I know that camera bodies come with a body cap and a lens cap and a rear lens cap, keep your lens on your camera. Every time you take that lens on and off your camera is a chance for dust and items to get inside of it. So if you only have one lens, keep that lens on your camera body. Do not take them on and off, on and off, on and off. So the next thing that we have here are these little kind of slide on or screw on macro lens adapter and super wide angle adapter. These things are junk. There's a reason they make a specific macro lens and a reason that they make wide angle photography lenses, because they are far superior. All you're doing is sitting junk in front of your lens and making your image quality even worse to gain something that isn't worth the benefit. In my opinion, these things are very cheap, probably doesn't cost them 50 cents to make, and not worth investing in or receiving in any kit ever at any time. Next thing that we have down here is a lens cap holder. So this little thing connects to your lens cap. This connects to your lens. And when you take your lens cap, it just kind of dangles off there. And that way you can't lose your lens cap. Personally, I know I'm odd, but I don't actually use my lens caps. And there's reasons why I don't use them. And I'll explain those when I talk about lens hoods and filters. But I don't actually use my lens caps. If you do want to use a lens cap, that's great. When you take your camera out, take your lens cap off, put it in your camera bag. When you put it back in your camera bag, put your lens cap back on. That's what you need to do. Having this thing dangling around is just a sure sign that you are an amateur photographer. You don't know what you're doing. And this is something you'll never see a professional photographer putting on their camera, and definitely not worth investing any money in to use. The next thing that we have here is a tripod. Now, remember, I'm an instructor. I see these things coming in all the time. A tripod is definitely a good investment for a photographer. However, most of these tripods don't cost but $5 or $10, and they are not worth the money that you get for them. The heads are loose, they wiggle around, the legs shake and tremble when you put stuff or if wind blows. And these are like little locking mechanisms. And over time, they become loose. And as you're taking the picture, the leg slides right back up into the tube and the camera moves as you're using it. One good thing that you could do is just go ahead, get yourself a Manfrotto tripod. It's going to cost around $100. It's going to last you for your whole life. It might not be the most sexy thing in the whole world to get this aluminum tripod, but it's going to last you forever. It's going to be big, sturdy, and more useful than these little plastic things that don't work. We are going to put an X through this because this tripod is not worth the money. The next thing that we see here is this camera strap. This isn't something special you're getting. Every camera comes with this camera strap, and this is an awesome camera strap. I love these. I still use these. I get free ones, neoprene ones. I don't use them. These are the only camera straps I use. I love them. Next thing up, we have this flash. This looks like something that was made 50 years ago. I don't even know if this is fully automatic, meaning a TTL flash. It might be, or it might be completely manual. Whatever the case, the thing probably is not worth investing in or sticking on your camera. This is, once again, is just a junky item that you're getting. It is never going to give you a decent photo. Never. Next up, it looks like that this was a thumb drive, but actually this is a card reader. This card reader is going to be for your SD cards. Up here, you're going to be able to stick your SD cards or micro SD cards in this and then stick that into your computer and it should work. I don't know if it is USB 2 or USB 3, but in general, most computers these days do come with SD card readers, unless you're a Mac user, and I'm a Mac user, and they don't come with them anymore. And it does piss me off, though I don't really use SD cards anyways. I use compact flash instead, so I do have a separate card reader. It's probably okay to get if it works. Next thing we have is a remote shutter cord. This is probably just a very basic Chinese-made shutter release. As long as this thing plugs in and works, it's okay to get in a kit. It's probably worthwhile. This is going to allow you to press the shutter release without having to touch your camera. So if it works, wonderful. This could be an okay option. The next thing that we have down here is sets of filters. So we'll talk about this filter first, which is a UV or ultraviolet filter. I have ultraviolet filters on all of my camera lenses. However, they are not all made the same. There are some really, really cheap, crappy UV filters that aren't worth sticking on the front of any lens. And there are some UV filters that are probably better than the image quality on the lens that you have. I use a company called B+H. They make wonderful, wonderful lenses. But is it worth sticking a B+H filter on this lens? Probably not. You could get away with something like a Tiffin or just the Canon I think it's the L37C or something like that filter, whatever their basic UV filter is. Just make sure that if you're sticking a UV filter, it's going to be a decent UV filter. Now, UV filters block ultraviolet light, but really what they are more of a protective lens. Instead of your lens getting scratched or something happening to it, it happens to your filter if that's all that you have on it. Now, something that I don't see here is a lens hood, and you have to be very careful. Most camera kits come with these junky universal screw-on lens hoods, and they're not worth putting on. Lens hoods are very specific to each lens, and because this is a zoom lens, it needs a very specific type where it's not quite as long on the left and right side as is on top and the bottom. And you need to make sure that you have that so your camera lens doesn't vignette. The problem with those is they rotate with your focusing mechanism, so they're constantly in the wrong spot and they're not worth actually sticking on. I think a lens hood is more beneficial than a UV filter. The reason that I don't use lens caps is because I have a lens hood on, and maybe when I put something away for a long time, I'll stick a lens cap on it, but it's easy to clean one of these little filters. It's not a big deal. And taking a lens cap on and off just is kind of a waste of time because I take pictures so often. An ultraviolet filter is definitely worthwhile, but make sure you're getting the appropriate brand or something of decent quality before you just randomly stick it on the end of your camera lens. Now down here, we have some special filters. This is probably a polarization filter, and a polarization filter is used to remove reflections like in water or glass, or can be used to deepen skies. They're the most expensive filter that you will ever purchase. Most of my regular polarizing filters are usually between $100 and $150. They're quite expensive. If you're getting a cheap little one in a kit, from what I've seen, but they're not worth sticking on the end of your camera. These are just like the cheapest of cheap Chinese made filters. Down here, we have probably some sort of like soft focus or other special effect filters. And then it comes with this little case. In my opinion, this is not anything beneficial to you as a photographer. Over here, it looks like we got a hard case of some sort, I guess for traveling. I don't know anything about it. I know what Vivitar brand is. They make flashes a lot of times. Just like this case, it's probably okay to have. It's not the greatest thing in the whole world, but if you get it for free, you get it for free. It's not going to hurt you or hinder you. We're just going to skip this thing right here because this is such an odd thing. It's not going to be helpful. Here we have a tabletop tripod. This is going to allow you to stick your camera on a tabletop. Instead of having to carry around a big tripod like this, you can use this one. If it is able to support your camera, then it's going to be beneficial. If not, it's probably not going to be beneficial. The last thing that we're going to take a look at is a good thing and a bad thing right here. And this is the SD cards that we see here. So the good thing is they're giving you two. One thing I can tell you is make sure that you have two batteries and make sure you have two SD cards. That way, if your one battery goes dead, you can stick your other battery in. If your one SD card gets full, you can stick the other one in. If it crashes or goes bad, you can stick the other one in. If you forget it, you can stick the other one in. However, if you see SD cards where they don't list the read-write speeds on them, most likely it's something they don't want you to know because it's so slow. The key element in most of these cards is that you need to have a fast read-write speed. You don't run out of your buffer, and it's quicker to transfer the images from your SD cards to your computer or external hard drive. This Transcend brand is something that I would never recommend to anyone ever. They're horrible quality. They don't last. They're not worth the money. A really awesome SD card is going to be under $20. It's under $20. So to get two of these in a high-end Pro Extreme SanDisk card is going to cost you $40 for two at the max. It's not a lot of money. SanDisk is probably your best bet is getting these. Now they have different options as far as rewrite speeds, but Kingston, Transcend, some of this stuff is junk. I would not get this brand. The chances of them crashing or losing information isn't worth the $20 that I can invest in an SD card. The other thing about SanDisk is most of their good cards, if it ever breaks, you send it to them, they send you a brand new one for free. They have a lifetime warranty. That's a little bit of stuff in this kit. Now, all kits are going to vary a little bit and have something different. So just be aware of what you're going to get. So the next thing we're going to do in this video is I'm going to go over some good options other than what you see here as far as what is worth investing your money in to replace some of these items? Or if I was just coming out and buying a new camera kit, what are some of the options and why I would choose them over what is involved in these kits? Is it going to cost you money? Yes, more often than not. Some of this stuff you can get used. I'm going to give you some places of where you can get that used stuff, and that will be in the second part of this video. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.